Well, good evening, folks. I'm Alfred Zuccaro. I'm the publisher of BocaWatch and primarily the interviewer on this show, although sometimes I have replacements. I start with the proposition of an informed citizenry is an asset to the community. BocaWatch was established in 2012 and was representative of the voice of a small group of people that were resentful and disrespected within city government. Since then, we have now grown to over 11,000 email contacts on a weekly basis and 17,000 followers on Facebook under BocaWatch Official. We have advanced the program, and now we are engaging in both video and satire with regards to what we're doing. BocaWatch is a weekly internet broadcast in cooperation with WRPBI TV. You can see us on Tuesday evenings at 6:30 and then replayed again on Wednesday mornings. And the interviews appear on the www.bocawatch.org on Wednesday mornings as well. My purpose today is to just inform you that tonight's show is going to be about further about the political contest that's going on with regards to voting yes for the Boca Raton question on November 8th. That is the most imperative thing that we're doing right now. It preserves the use of public land along the Intracoastal Waterway from development, from commercial use, as is being conveyed by the Chamber of Commerce and by the Hillstone Restaurant Group, who are the recipients of who will be the recipients of a 45-year lease if the people vote no. So it becomes a vote yes situation. And then I'm going to end this dialogue with one little thing, my favorite comment, my favorite quote. Public sentiment is everything. With public sentiment, nothing can fail. Without it, nothing can succeed. Abraham Lincoln. Thank you. Well, welcome back, folks. As you know, this is Al Zuccaro, and we are in the throes of a very exciting and very important election cycle this month. And today, we have the pleasure and the privilege to have former Councilman Anthony Majors here, who was actually on the City Council from the years 2009 to 2013, and specifically was on the council at the time that the Wildflower purchase was made. So I've asked Anthony if he will give us some background information on what was going on in the mindset of the council in general at that time, and how we have evolved to a point now where the history seems to have been changed. Well, welcome, and thank you very much for coming today.
Thank you very much for having me, Al.
And I know that you are growing in your own life and your career, and that's very nice. And I'm a member of RP, and I suspect you are too, and that's Recovering Politician. So you heard my intro. We are in a very difficult and challenging election fight. There is a whole group out there that are well funded with monies to thwart the will of the people with regards to the outcome of the public lands owned along the waterfront, the Intercoastal. The focus, however, has become the Wildflower site. And you were on the council at the time the Wildflower site was purchased. Can you give the audience a little bit of a background in terms of how we got to where the council was at the time, the thesis behind the acquisition of the property, and then we'll go on after that and talk about how it's evolved into something other than what I recall.
It would be my pleasure. Thank you very much for having me. Thank you for the work you do with BocaWatch.
Thank you.
Serving on the council was my greatest honor, being able to serve the people. You use the word thwarting the will of the public, and I do think there's also a campaign to mislead the people as far as what this ballot question means and how important it is. My experience with with the Wildflower property before I got elected was there had always been some interest in purchasing the property. I mean, it's a gem. It's in our downtown. It's on the waterfront. The old Wildflower restaurant had sat as a defunct building for years, years and years, sitting on the Intercoastal, and nobody did anything with it. So there had always been conversation about purchasing it. When I came onto the council in 2009, every April the city hosts its annual goal-setting session where they talk about what they want to do in the next year, 5 years, 10 years. I encourage the public to attend those. They're typically at the end of April and early May. So it was brought up during the goal-setting session as a priority to purchase the Wildflower property. There was no discussion, to my recollection, as to what we would do with the property, but I think everybody had considered that it would be for public use. I just think that was a given. What else would you do with purchasing a piece of public property? Because there's not many cities that are in the business of private restaurants. So we had owned the property for months, and then to our surprise, to my surprise, during a city council meeting, a very popular land use attorney came forward with a gentleman named Joe Ledbetter, who was one of the founders of Houston's, but he broke away to open a restaurant called Bricktop with a letter of intent that explained their lease terms and that they wanted to build a restaurant on the site. And this land use attorney invoked some part of the code that said if the city decides to accept the letter of intent at this meeting, that we would move forward with it. And any other challenger or any other restaurant could come forward and try to beat the terms in the letter of intent. Otherwise, we were moving forward with this one. Mayor Welchel was ready to accept the letter of intent at the time, and I came forward and fought for the public and said that we promised the public a very public process in planning what that property would be. And the rest of the council agreed, and we did move forward with a giant public meeting, which turned out to be about 70 people or so. And as far as misleading the public, when the assistant city manager boiled the numbers down at the end, I think there were 3 restaurateurs. The rest of the 70 or 75 people that attended, I don't have the numbers perfectly. It was somewhere between 70 and 80 people. The rest of the people said they wanted a park. A few people said they would like to be able to get something to eat at the park. And so when the assistant city manager crunched the numbers, he took all of the people who said they would like to be able to get something to eat, like at a concession stand, and included that under the numbers for people who wanted a restaurant. So the numbers came out very skewed.
We're going to talk about that with Jim Wood, who is a statistician, in the subsequent interview. Who on the council at the time was a proponent of changing from the concept of a public use property to a restaurant? Who supported the land use attorney's efforts? Was it Welchel or?
I don't trust my memory going back 5 years, and not to pat myself on the back, but I really feel if I was not there at that meeting that the letter of intent would have been accepted and that things would have moved forward. I'm a critic of the way city government runs, and so much of what happens at our city council meetings seems to happen behind the scenes long before we get into the meeting. So, and what I mean by that, I don't want to disparage any one council member individually, but I think they're not so forthright during the meetings. I do think, to answer your question in general, that it would have passed had I not been there to fight for a public charrette. So to name people individually, certainly Susan Welchel was the lead in trying to push for a restaurant. She got everybody to agree at one point that we had to agree that the Wildflower property was going to be a revenue-producing property, and the rest of the council went along with that, except for me. So why they would feel that of all the parks that we own that don't produce revenue, this one has to be a revenue-producing piece of property, I don't know. But that did pass with a 4-to-1 support. So I guess you can say that all of the council members were in support of doing something on that property.
And that would be Millay, Constance Scott, Susan Haney, who's the current mayor.
Currently, yes.
And who was the 5th?
I was the 5th.
You were the 5th.
Right. So,
But you stopped that. The letter of intent was not accepted, and we have now moved forward to the point now where we are in this current situation where a citizen referendum is at stake. and the citizen group behind it has been very effective to bring it to the vote of the people. Your sense about that?
Well, let's cut to the chase here. The council members on this referendum, the council members currently sitting had, and Jeremy Rogers, Scott Singer, Bob Weinroth, and our current mayor, Susan Haney, had the opportunity to accept the referendum and turn it into law immediately. But instead they chose to leave it to the people, and now now you have the Chamber of Commerce coming out with misrepresentation of the facts and what the referendum means. So even this current council is pushing for a restaurant. So our mayor, under her leadership, could easily say this is going to be a piece of property for the public and for public use, and this would all go away. But instead, it's going to go to a referendum. And I think the people can see through the smoke and mirrors and are going to do the right thing.
Well, you know that the opposition is well funded. It's received over $100,000 from people that are involved with the Chamber of Commerce, and $50,000 direct. I'm sorry, $110,000 in total, $50,000 directly from Hillstone Restaurant. I mean, they have a stake in the outcome, but very few people know that. It's included in an article that I wrote last week or the week before. So this fight is getting to be a very interesting fight, and I thank you for taking the time to shed some of the light. As you know, we run out of time quickly in these shows, and do you have any parting comments in terms of where the city government is and where it might be going in the future?
That's up to the people, and I attend my niece and nephews' my games, and so many families are tied up doing family things. But it is very important for people to be involved. If you cannot make it to the city council meetings, watch them at home, either on your computer or on your TV, and get involved. I don't trust the Sun Sentinel, as I've been very vocal about their editor, who rewrites articles and retitles articles and in favor of the big push for development and harvesting the development rights of the city of Boca Raton. So you have to make up your own mind, and the direction of the city in the future is going to be up to the people that are watching this video and the voters. And inform yourself. Don't take anything for granted.
Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you very much.
Excellent. Well, welcome back, folks. As you know, this is Al Zuccaro. Sitting next to me is Jim Wood. Jim Wood has been an incredible energy in this fight that we're having with regards to commercializing the parkland along the Intercoastal. Welcome, Jim, and thank you for coming.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
By way of a lead-in, there is a ton of misrepresentation going on in the community. There are signs all over the place that is a concerted effort on the part of professional organizers, supported by money from the Chamber of Commerce and from the Hillstone Group, which is set to get a lease on the property, arguing vote no and arguing that the language of the ordinance is too restrictive and won't allow for things like a gift shop. That's not true. Why?
Well, I think we can look at the Ocean Strand situation.
Dating back to 2012.
2012, and I'd like to kind of quote from a May 18th Sun Sentinel article regarding developers taking over the park area at Ocean Strand. It says, Penn, Florida has stressed to the city and park district officials that the beach club would be a necessary amenity to attract an exclusive international hotel that has expressed interest in the Via Meisner project. And that hotel is critical to the success of Via Meisner. So what Penn, Florida wanted to do was to put in a building on the beach and a parking lot on the west side of A1A. Obviously, the need was overstressed, maybe a lie or an extortion, because obviously it's not necessary. They have their luxury hotel, they're going forward. So the citizens objected to that back in 2012 and created an initiative ordinance, just like we did today for the wildflower, and got that enacted. Now you see the results. Basically, Gumbo Limbo has commercial interest in their gift shop. We have vendors on the beach. We have a hot dog vendor at Palmetto Park. So there is no real
So the
restriction.
argument that commercialization would not be allowed to move forward under the language is really a false argument. And the attorney, correct me if I'm wrong, the attorney that negotiated the language of the 2012 ordinance, which is currently in effect, is the same attorney that the petition committee retained to negotiate the language for this committee.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
All right. So in earlier, I interviewed Anthony Magis, who was a city council member at the time, and he began to talk about the manipulation of the statistics with regards to this. You've been a stalwart over the last 6 months in tracking the statistical arguments and demonstrating the false assertions that are being made by the city council, by the city staff, and by the opposition. Give us a couple of
Sure.
comments on and an overview.
Yeah, 2011, the city did an electronic survey over their website, and they reported the results at a workshop in October. And it just shocked me that it seemed like the results were just totally out of sync with what the residents were reporting. So we did a lot of research. We did a public records request. We got all the raw data and scored it ourselves. And we came up with just totally different results. For example, the city scored 11 responses favoring a park. We scored 47 responses favoring a park. They had 18% favoring a park. We had 60%.
Well, let's talk about that for a second,
Yeah.
because you presented this in many different forums at the city council, and they have never refuted your findings. They have simply said that, I believe they said it was statistically insignificant, was the phrase. But we proved that it wasn't.
That's correct, right. We did a statistical analysis of significance and proved that there was no way that this is statistically insignificant. And by the way, we had an FAU professor, full professor, Dr. Timothy Lentz, also look at the information and scored it, and pretty much came up with exactly what we had scored. So an independent look at it agreed with us.
All right, let's move on just a little bit.
Yeah.
We are now in the final stages of a major campaign to either vote yes to preserve the city parks from development and commercialization, or have the citizens vote no. And a vote no would support the Chamber of Commerce and the Hillstones efforts to build a brick and mortar restaurant on a piece of city-owned land. You've actually done a stellar job of analyzing the lease that's involved, et cetera, et cetera. Where do you see? How do we encourage the people to vote yes? I know that you and the petition committee have been working very hard at that. So,
relative to the financials of the lease, as an incentive to vote yes, the city positioned it as a $33 million financial gain to the city. That included absolutely no cost the city would incur. An example of a cost the city would incur is $10 million just in real estate taxes over the 10 years. So we added in the cost that the city would incur as a result of this lease. And then we did a net present value analysis, because it's a 45-year lease. And our results are instead of a gain of $33 million, the citizens over 45 years would actually lose money.
You have been working very hard at the early voting polls. What's the sense of the people that you're seeing in the early voting polls?
The sense of the people is very positive. We have poll workers out there providing information, and our informal estimates are that 75% of the people are in favor of the ordinance and are voting yes.
I am a firm believer that the voting public is really very smart. That seems to be reflective of it. And this illusion, this con that's going on to talk about voting no is not penetrating.
Yeah. People are very skeptical that we're talking to.
You know, there are signs all over town that say vote no. They're all on one property. The major property owner in the city of Boca Raton has allowed these signs to be placed on his property. And they seem to be falling on deaf ears.
That's correct. Yeah, people are confused, and they're coming to us for information, for clarification.
Well, any last pearls of wisdom?
Yeah, vote yes.
Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Folks, need to bring one thing to your attention. Today's show consisted of Anthony Majors, former city council member, and Jim Wood, the statistician for the people that are arguing for a vote yes. I did invite the president of the Chamber of Commerce, Troy McClellan, and the mayor of the city of Boca Raton, Susan Haney, to present their arguments for people to hear and see. Neither of them made themselves available for this interview. Mayor Haney did not even have the courtesy to respond with a yes or no. Mr. McClellan said he was simply unavailable. The fact is, their arguments are unsustainable, and you, the public, know it. So onward and upward. Well, folks, you've heard a lot today about the issues with regards to the current political climate in the city of Boca Raton. You heard from former Councilman Majors and the essence of why the property was purchased. You heard from Mr. Wood, who did all of the statistical analysis, etc. And in previous shows, you've heard also things, and if you've been following BocaWatch, you've read a whole lot. But what we do know is that there is a lot of confusion in the marketplace. So here today, on this show tonight, I am about to try and clear up the confusion. It's time to clear it up for this important vote that will take place on November 8th in the ballot question of the Boca Raton ballot question. It's a simple yes or no vote for the items known as the City of Boca Raton Ordinance. A vocal minority with deep pockets is supporting a no vote. The special interest group has funded a Tallahassee firm to create misinformation in the marketplace and feed it to the voting public. They have recruited the largest private landowner in Boca Raton to plant misleading signs throughout his properties in the city, all in an effort to sway the vote, to sway you, the silent majority. But signs don't vote. People do. A no vote effectively sells our city-owned waterfront property to a private entity for development of precious green space into a single-use, asphalt-laden commercial property. It also opens the door for commercialization of all our city-owned waterfront parks. Don't let this happen. A yes vote preserves our valuable public green space on these important properties and allows for multiple uses of recreation, art, concessions, family fun, and much more. Don't be confused. Preserve green space for recreation now and in the future. Once the public green space is gone, it is gone forever. vote yes for the City of Boca Raton ordinance on November 8th. Thank you.